I'm glad you're still teaching because it is, you know, right?
Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, December 10th, 2014 to order. May we have a roll call, please? Mrs. Schlueter.
Mr. Alexandrovich?
Here.
Mrs. Evans?
Here.
Mrs. Klein? Here. Mrs. Larson?
Here.
Mr. Nielsen?
Here.
Mrs. Witkowski?
Here.
And I'm here.
Thank you. Has the meeting been properly posted, Dr. Pats?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 3 on the agenda is the Friends of Franklin Public Schools presentation. We have Mrs. Klein and Dr. Pats who will present the awards.
Good evening, everybody. It's always one of the nicest events that we have when we can recognize people that contribute to our school district in a lot of different ways. And each quarter, actually, we have nominations for an award called the Friends of Franklin Award. And I'm going to have Victoria Jensen come up first of all and join me. And Victoria will tell you a little bit about who's been nominated and why they've been nominated. And we might as well have Sarah Shelby come up right away too. So Sarah, would you come up? Great.
Yes, this is Sarah Shelby. She's the general manager of Culver's. And Morgan, would you like to come up also? Morgan Plagins is an employee of Culver's. And Julie Chez, would you like to come up? Julie Chez is an employee of Culver's that started at Culver's when she was in high school, at Franklin High School, and has been here for 7 years. We would like to thank them for all of their hard work in helping hire students of all abilities. And also thank you for the life skills experiences you've had. We finished an assessment through Franklin High School, teaching students job skills at Culver's. And it was fantastic. We really appreciate that. And we also appreciate all the fundraisers that you do to support all the Franklin clubs and teams, especially Best Buddies, which we're very involved with. We feel that, Sarah, you and your team have inspired our students for success.
Sarah, thank you very much.
Thank you and congratulations. Item 4 is community comment. Per board policy, we allow up to 15 minutes of resident comment. Is there any community comment tonight? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 5, approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Nielsen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Witkowski. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item 6 is the consent agenda. Would any board member like to remove any item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item 7, school board announcements. Are there any announcements?
I'd like to congratulate the girls cheer team for winning a bid to nationals for the 2nd year in a row. So they'll be going down to Orlando in February. So, very excited.
That's great. Anything else?
Just one announcement, the board had been aware of a possible December 16th meeting that is canceled and will not be held.
Any other announcements? I'd just like to say I had my liaison meeting with Mr. Nowak, and we discussed a lot about inroads, which we're going to discuss tonight. And I was most impressed with the partnerships that he discussed. And besides Wheaton Franciscan, which I know you all read about in the packet, there's also UWM that's coming in the future. And what's interesting is that these partnerships are coming to the high school. We don't have to go out and search for a lot of these, so that's a really good thing for the district, that we're making an impression on the community. So, thank you. And next is school board calendar. We have a regular board meeting on Wednesday, January 14th, 2015, here at the Education and Community Center at 6 o'clock p.m., and a regular board meeting Wednesday, January 28th, 2015, here at the ECC at 6 o'clock p.m. And item 9 is reports and presentations. Item A, inroads update. We have Mr. Nowak and Mr. Cohen.
Thank you.
Same copy of the report that was on the board docs. Thank you very much for the opportunity to meet with you tonight, to check in relative to inroads. As Mrs. Evans noted, we talked the other day about some of the neat things that are happening. I think as we talk tonight, it's really important to realize that we're in, less than 4 months of a 4-year process. So there's, been an awful lot of discussion. We've had 3+ months of really great student involvement. We've got some good student testimony as to what the experience has meant. But at the same time, there's an awful lot, in front of us. And I will point out, we're still working from that premise that by the end of a 4-year experience, we want all of the students that are involved in this program to have the opportunity to work side by side with a professional, to learn side by side with a professional if it's what they if it's what they wish. So by a lot of these partnerships, by a lot of just different opportunities that we pull into the experience, we hope to make that happen. I think too the best image that I have of what this program is really all about in terms of its totality is to look at it in 2-year segments. As you think about the freshman and sophomore years, it's really about putting our arms around students, trying to pull them into all the possibilities that they could experience. And then as they go into their junior and senior year, really open up our arms and let them out into the world, so to say, in terms of seeing things firsthand, in terms of interacting with people, so that they're able to make sound decisions. They're able to maybe be more informed relative to things that they might like to do. Ultimately, that's the goal. You've received a packet, the second page of the packet with that interesting looking diagram, which we call honeycomb. It speaks really to sort of the research behind what we're doing. We feel very strongly that, relative to personalized learning, this is a very research-based, sound approach that we're developing for students. I'll point to one of the points there, the second one, customized learning paths. One of the things that is sort of surfaced at the state level, actually since we've begun this work, is the idea of academic and career plans. You'll hear more and more about that at the state level. As we move closer to the 17-18 school year, every district will have pretty clear expectations around developing academic and career plans for students. We believe that our work with Inroads may help us tremendously in that regard. It may create sort of a blueprint for how we do business. The only other thing I'm going to say initially before I turn it over to Nick, who'll go over some of the program goals, is we also, as we've begun this work, we are very sensitive to how this program fits in the greater whole of the school. So, you know, we've been talking with Wendy. Wendy's referred to it from a visual standpoint. If we have our whole school comprehensive experience, the inroads experience is a piece of that. We will probably more than likely always have the comprehensive experience, you know, that kids will take and kids will engage in. But we want this to be something that all kids can access. And as it grows in terms of different strands that we create, we think it'll serve that purpose. So with that said, I'd like to turn it over to Nick, who will go into some goals and other kind of future plans.
Yeah, we thought it would be helpful, given that you had the report, to just kind of cover the summary pages at the end and talk about, you know, where this fits and where we've come in the last year since we really talked to you last about this. And that is to start by refocusing on what the program goals are. You heard Mike reference the fact that you have the comprehensive high school experience, and for those students who want a very targeted, career-focused experience where we can guarantee them community placements and hands-on experiences outside the high school, that this is the program those students would gravitate towards. If they want a more broad career exploration experience across multiple venues, they would stay with the more traditional comprehensive experience, but this is a very targeted experience for kids. And provides them with some opportunities that we maybe can't provide at the larger high school level from the comprehensive program standpoint. But we need a place to start in terms of what are our goals and outcomes and how are we going to measure them to determine whether or not the program is being successful. So those data points are real important to us. So if you look at the summary pages on page 12, it talks a little bit about program goals and what we're trying to accomplish. And it really falls into 4 areas. The first one is that we want to engage every student in hands-on relevant learning experiences, and we want those experiences to be chosen by students. As we talk about personalized learning environments and students and how they fit into that process, they need to have more access and choice in terms of what they're accessing in their education, in terms of what learning experiences they want, and we want those to be hands-on and relevant. Secondly, that we provide high-quality career exploration. You heard Mike reference academic career planning that will be required of all students. But we want them exposed to not just strands, but all of the careers that are available within that strand. And so as we talk about biomedical sciences, for example, 50, 60 career areas fall into that area of biomedical science. And so it's not just about becoming a doctor or a nurse, right? It's about all of the things that are involved in that and ensuring that students understand that. So when they go to college, they can have a plan and a vision and be able to have a more targeted experience in college. Third, that we provide students with mentorship opportunities both within the school and the community. There's a lot of great community expertise that we're not drawing on as well as we could have and should. And so we want them to be able to have those kind of deep experiences where business professionals and community professionals are advising them around research and around projects, along with their educational mentors and their counselors. So having a team of people involved with each student instead of maybe one person they're connecting with. And then lastly, securing regular community placements for the purpose of gaining that hands-on experience. So again, placing students in the community and giving them the flexibility within their schedule to do that. And so those are our program goals in terms of this experience around those strands and as they grow additional strands. And the data we're going to use to measure that really focuses on things such as program retention and growth. We referenced in the demographics section, we have about 142 students currently enrolled in the program. It's about a third of the 9th grade class that is involved themselves year 1 in this experience. And we know that those numbers will fluctuate in one direction or the other over time as students learn more about what this program is all about and whether or not it's a good fit for them. And our hope is that as we talk about planning and advising, that at the middle school level, we're really advising students as to whether this program is something that fits their future plans or if a more comprehensive high school experience is really something that would be best for them.
Just curious on the 140, is it equally boys and girls, or is it, does it draw all across the academic, range of abilities?
It's a great question. It's demographically split pretty evenly, not just from a gender perspective, but when you talk about things about academic achievement and student test scores and all of those things, it's broken up pretty evenly amongst a variety of different student demographics. So it is a nice cross section of the 9th grade class overall.
Is that your goal also?
Yeah, whenever we get into this conversation, that's a common misconception that emerges, that notion that it's just for the kids at the top or those kinds of things. It's really for every kid. I mean, you're looking at helping a kid to realize sort of their place, their strengths, you know, and in essence to find a fit. As you look at the different strands that we've noted, Nick noted the number of biomedical careers that there are, you know, we sometimes look at those almost in tiers as well. We might have kids that, you know, have the ambition to be a surgeon. We might have kids that, you know, ultimately a 2-year tech degree to be a med tech might be their route. And that might be perfectly fine and very appropriate for them.
So in addition to that, we're going to look at, obviously, student academic data. One of the things that's important to us, if you look at, you know, 9th grade failures, particularly in English and math, we know that, and research has told us, that students who fail English and math in the 9th grade level really struggle in terms of their whole high school career. And so part of our focus here really is about transition from 8th grade to 9th grade, ensuring that those students have a positive educational experience and reconnecting them with teachers in the curriculum so that we don't have failure rates at the 9th grade level, particularly in those core areas. And so, you know, part of the data we're going to be monitoring very closely is how students are performing, and are they earning credit, and are they academically engaged. We're gonna monitor attendance and behavioral data, college and career readiness data. The ACT Aspire was administered this year. We're administering it twice. It's state mandated, once in the fall, once in the spring. We'll look at that data. Student engagement data, and then we're gonna continue to survey students and staff just relative to their experiences. And again, we're growing this program over time, and so we know that there's room for growth and change and things we need to do to continue to develop as we move forward. I did want to share, I think it's important to hear from our students and kind of what their perspectives are. There is a blog that in the electronic version you can link to, and I'd be happy to provide that URL in full. But Amy Lester, one of our Inroads English teachers, is working with students to develop them as writers, and one of the assignments they've worked on is reflecting on their experience on a regular basis. And so on that blog, she posts, and all the staff in the Inroads program post regular updates, and then students post updates as to what they're experiencing and what that looks like. And so I gave you some examples here of some of the things that students are saying, and I would encourage you to go take a look at kind of the broader group. Every student in the program will have a blog post on that blog at some point this year, so you get to hear from everybody in the program about their experience and where they're at. Just one example, the second one down. Inroads is definitely something new to me, but it seems to be an efficient way of learning. Having the Inroads program be more personalized in comparison to regular classes can help us enjoy it more because we can choose to do something that connects with our interests. So again, I think students are recognizing right off the bat it's a different kind of experience, and for many of them it's an experience they're connected to.
Thanks, Nick. You know, I want to make the point again that, you know, part of my job in this process is to look at how this program fits the greater whole of our entire school. And that's really important to consider. You know, one of the things about Franklin High School is the breadth of experiences that we offer kids, from, you know, tech ed to music to family and consumer science. We're a school that's committed to kind of that wide range. That range really helps us, you know, offer a program like this and make it everything that ultimately it will be. Because we have quality educators, quality programs that can help in making those connections. So that's a really important piece. Earlier you heard Mrs. Evans talk about UWM. That's specifically relating to a new strand that will go in, the one new strand, which I'm going to share with you, which is digital communication and media arts. As we looked at what we would add, our three right now are engineering, biomedical science, and global business. In terms of making a decision about what would be next, we had to consider needs, you know, in terms of future employment. Communications is probably right at the top in terms of jobs that will be there. In some cases, we don't really know what those even are. And then as well, that technology piece obviously is going to be attractive. As we look at our school right now, relative to, you know, television production, I would say we're, you know, in the area. I think we all know we're very, very strong. So we believe that's one place that we can really excel. And UWM's understanding of where we are as a television production, from a film production perspective is what's kind of drawing them towards us. So from that perspective, we think we can take a good program and make it even better. I think that's an important piece to look at this. This isn't, a comprehensive experience and an inroads experience growing in isolation. Ultimately, it's how do they help one another so that in time, earlier today we did a 5 years from now activity, in 5 years from now, in 10 years from now, we see the entire school growing as a result of this work. So, very exciting stuff. That's our next strand though, so we'll unveil that for students as a possibility next year. And then as well, in your packet, you'll see a number of courses which have come before the board a few meetings back when we looked at new course offerings and such. They include an English 10 course, a seminar experience at the sophomore level, and then a second-year global business course. So that process of course development and weaving courses in will continue, as well as the partnerships. One of the things that we really wanted to talk about tonight was our beginning points of our partnership with Wheaton Franciscan. Nick and I have had 2 meetings with President of Wheaton Franciscan, Franklin and South Francis's grouping, and actually they came to us initially to talk about ways that they could be involved. And our discussions have been really back and forth in terms of their desire to be connected in the community and our desire to utilize their experience and their expertise. It's always a good meeting when you can start by saying, look, we don't want money. we want your experience, your expertise, and we really believe that you'll benefit from the involvement with us. So we noted in the back of the packet, starting on page 10, some different ways that those things will happen. You'll note some different areas, professional presentations, shadowing experiences, research opportunities, volunteer opportunities, and then area 5 is noted as getting a jump start on career and college planning. We talked in some of those discussions around the idea of mentorship and the possibility of establishing formal mentors. And we also talked about just the fact that a lot of that mentorship would be natural, if you will, just by the fact that if our kids are interacting with professionals, they're going to gain insights. They're going to gain insights on things like where to go to school, things like what will help you in terms of application process, all those kinds of things. In terms of medicine, if you're considering some different avenues, some different subspecialties and those kinds of things, we're highly, highly confident that those interactions are going to help our students dramatically. So, and they were too. It was really exciting to hear, their interest in sort of, bringing Wheaton Franciscan into the community, their desire to be, a true community hospital, and we think our partnership will help with that.
The benefit of a partnership with a group like Wheaton Franciscan, when you think about these strands, is it doesn't just address biomedical for us, right? You think about business implications, you think about digital media communications, you think about engineering, robotics, and how all those things fit. It's just a real nice fit for us just across the strands and not just from a biomedical perspective. So we're in the deep planning stages with them. They're working with their own groups to kind of mock this out for us. We've timelined when we would need certain experiences, but they've committed to, particularly our biomed kids by junior and senior year, being on site in Wheaton Franciscan hospitals and working side by side with surgeons and professionals. So we're really excited about that and think it's a model for identifying future partnerships to help grow. And we'd like to identify a cornerstone partnership for each of the strands, like Wheaton Franciscan is for biomed, so that we have that experience across the board. So.
Some other partnerships that we've established early in the experience. We did a thing with Racine Water. You have the others, Nick. We've had some political. The president of Greendale came in, spoke with our seminar kids about water a lot of their work is centered around the study of water in the area. So sort of the starting point of some.
Yeah, representatives from DNR. As part of the seminar experience, we needed to ground students around how to do project-based work and really work as teams and collaborate more effectively. And so they centered it on this issue of global water crisis and how do we address that locally. And then from there, students were able to self-select into different types of projects and things they were going to be working on that weren't necessarily water-related. We just used that as the starting point for giving them a common experience. And as part of that, we had a lot of community professionals that came in that are doing some really good work around water shortage and conservation to help guide that process. So.
Yeah, so, in general, this has been difficult work, but it's work that we as a school really believe is the right work. It kind of is energizing, if you will, as we look around at area schools. I don't know that there are that many that are doing things quite like this, but we really believe that we have the foundation to make it go, to give it the momentum that it needs, and time will tell, obviously, but we're excited. Any questions?
I'm looking at some of the course listing. I think they're course listings, and a common one is this Inroads Accelerator in Experiencing Creation. Is that a class that, I'm guessing, is it a class?
Yeah, so we talked about by senior year, these students really having some research-based, student-driven experiences that really involved some innovative and creative things. And so it's not a course that we've developed or created other than conceptually what that would look like. But what we know we want to do is create flexible time for students in their schedule around research-based work that involves the integration and creation of things. So you think about robotics in an engineering strand, you think about entrepreneurship experiences in business, you think about biomedical innovations and kind of the pieces around there, that they have an experience that's hands-on, that's a capstone project their senior year, that's research-based and really gets them excited about the experience overall.
Yeah, and I would say it's rooted in innovation. So if any of you have ever heard of the D School at Stanford, the School of Design, it's a school that embraces a concept of the idea that there are various phases to being innovative. So the accelerator, in essence, tries to pull that mentality or that system of thinking into all of these different strands, as Nick noted.
A couple questions. First one's for you, Mr. Noah. You talked about how this, fits into the whole comprehensive high school, and this is kind of a fundamental question that maybe I should know the answer to already, but how many of the courses does the Inroads replace? Is it about half of the regular courses? The kids still have room for some electives, I know, but.
Yeah. Well, I mean, currently, we're just at the freshman level. So in
Right.
their schedule of 8 classes, I think ultimately it's.
4 of them are Inroads courses, but of them, one is English and one is social studies.
Right.
Right. So like, for example, an engineering student would have Project Lead the Way course. I mean, he may have had that course regardless, but because he's now in Inroads, his way of experiencing that course is maybe a little different.
Right.
At the end of the day, seminar is really the additional course when you
Okay.
think about that piece of the schedule.
Okay. So it fills what maybe would be an elective
It replaces
for
1 year
somebody
long,
in the,
yeah.
okay.
And I think as you move on, as we talk about letting loose, that we would potentially look at in a senior year, maybe a student has the opportunity in the last 2 blocks of a school day to, have a job shadowing experience and those kinds of things.
Okay, thanks. That just gives me an idea of the magnitude of it. Second question is for you, Mr. Cohn. Back to your, the subject of the data points that we're planning on measuring, I think that's excellent. I just wanted to clarify that you're not only going to be tracking those data points throughout time, but are you going to be comparing them to, like, as a control group to the comprehensive
Yeah,
high school
that's the
students?
point, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to take a look at, historical data around 9th grade and various grade levels and then comparing them to their peers,
Okay.
absolutely.
Thanks.
Yep.
I know it's a long way off, but are there any plans for the future to track how this makes a difference in the students' lives as far as job retention, like, for them to keep in touch with the schools, to see,
You would-
as we talked, you know, will this help them to keep a job longer rather than, as we've heard, switch, you know, a lot of people will switch their jobs
Right.
multiple times.
Well, and as you were saying that, I was thinking as well to college and the ability to maybe make decisions sooner relative to career interests and those things. I would equate it to that as well. I'd be interested to see if that was the case, so
I
I
think,
would hope.
yeah, I think unfortunately, it's really difficult to measure that kind of data in terms of retention and like those pieces, like it's just difficult to do.
Too many variables.
Yeah. What I think it does do for us is we're really growing future professionals in the field that hopefully feel connected to Franklin High School and the Inroads program, and so they're community members that can come back and support the program in a variety of ways. But it is really difficult to get at that data piece.
I mean, the kids do have, well, the adults, they do have reunions, and I mean, it wouldn't be that difficult to have surveys.
Yeah, it is.
Well, yeah, well,
Graduation
okay.
surveys, and
Well, I
it's-
remember that.
They're impossible.
Yeah.
You get such a low return rate that it really doesn't help your data to be able to do any sort of correlation between it.
But theoretically, though, like you said, the short term is that your freshmen and sophomores will have a different experience as juniors and seniors. Not so much after high school. I think that's your theory, that
Yeah.
they'll be
Yeah,
more engaged and more directed and more sure of
Yeah.
what they're going to be doing, perhaps.
Students spend so much money on career exploration in college, right? We're changing majors several times, we're taking new courses, we're paying for all those courses. I think one of our goals is really to have them make those decisions when they're going into college, so that they're not having to change majors multiple times and not do that career exploration there.
Well, the other part of that, excuse me, it helps their educational experience in high school
Right.
be much more rewarding, because now they're focused on something they want to do. Because we always hear kids, why do I have to take this? Why do I have to do that? Well, now we get these kids in the Inroads program, and especially as we filter some of the content of it back down into the middle school, we're going to get those kids coming to us that have a pretty good idea. You know, I want to be a pharmacist or whatever it might be, and certainly that can change. But I think one of the things in education that we need to do a better job of is appealing to the interest of the student. Even with our current way of doing business, make those classes appealing to the interest of the student, so.
And I think we have to say this, that we have an awful lot of programs and classes that do this right now. We look at our autos program, or, we have areas that are sort of showing us what to do. It's just, we're trying to create a structure that allows us to do more of that, allows us to almost to take that to a next level. So I couldn't agree more. Yeah, we want kids to pursue their interests, to be excited, absolutely.
I guess what would be when I look at some of these courses, and I agree they're more, engaging in terms of, some of the names of these, human body systems, medical interventions. But how does that translate then to, I hate to, bring up the SAT test, not that, but, that's kind of the bridge to the next level, is all these tests and how they're going to perform when they're not, these classes appear, as you said, more, they're driving their curiosity and not so much focus on standards of learning and a core body of knowledge, but more, this is what I want to know, so I'm going to go out and find out about that. So how do you see that translating?
Yeah, they're all focused on rigorous standards. We still have curriculum, we still have standards that are college and career aligned, and this is just the lens that they're experiencing those standards through. A lot of the courses you referenced are Project Lead the Way courses, and courses that are well established and are rigorous courses that are aligned to current standards and curriculum. So, one of our main tenets is college and career readiness. That's why we're doing what we do. So, these are it's just a different way a different lens for students to view the same standards through and access.
Yeah. And I would add to that discussion, another talking point there is AP curriculum. So, moving in this direction, we're not telling students don't take AP courses. As we talk about a personalized experience for kids. There are going to be kids that are deep into the inroads experience that see and realize a need for AP curriculum as well. So, AP coursework. So, we're gonna see a lot of different things relative to where kids go with this and what they'll do. But you're right, they'll still be needing to take their ACTs, and they'll still be needing to perform, at a very high level, and we're pretty confident that they will.
And I think Nick and Mike mentioned this several times, but whether a student's in the comprehensive high school or in the more career-focused area, they deserve the same type of education, the same type of opportunities. So the inroads teachers develop their courses just as the non-inroads teachers do, and the delivery models and the training is all similar. It's just that focus track. That's what makes it different.
We'll be back, I think, in the near future. to provide you some information, so
Thank
thank you
you.
for your time.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Okay, item 9B is the Buildings and Grounds Report. Mr. Cloutier.
I was given the assignment of what did you do last summer? So here's my report. Now, you all have it, I believe, in your packet. So as you can see, this is what, this first page is the, on the left side is the planned projects, those projects that we started the summer with as our plan. And Robinwood renovating the pavement and improving the drainage on their site. And as you can see, we did the design, the grading, the concrete, the asphalt, and fencing. The neighbors love us because now there's a nice, we've really cleaned up our shared property line with the neighbors to the east. We added some play structure pieces and some site amenities such as a bike rack for kids. So that came in at a good price. And then we planned on doing 3 sections of roof at Southwood Glen. It was the section of roof directly behind the gym, which is a much higher roof, the section of roof in front of the gym, and the section of roof just east of the gym. So we kind of went all the way around that gym, and it's really between 2 taller sections of building, so that part of the building is moving more, and so that's probably why it needed to be replaced a few years ahead of the rest of the building. But it is, after all, over almost 25 years old now, and that roof is original. So we'll start to see that come on this list come up in future years as we do more and more, 1 or 2 sections at a time. I believe there's 9 sections total on that roof. Now to the additional projects, which, as you all know, we have a very fluid process here. Things change. We try to hold back some money so that we have some available. So on the right side of that report, you'll see that at Ben Franklin, we replaced the main water heater that went. At Pleasant View, the next 3 or 4 projects, we had a booster water heater for the kitchen that failed on us. We did have a short-circuiting breaker panel, which was somewhat exciting for the children. It wasn't sparking and things of that nature during the school day, but we were able to handle it pretty well. We had some water-damaged drywall in one of the lower-level classrooms. Part of what we'll talk about on the long-range plan is how we can improve the drainage on the back side of that building to try to eliminate these kinds of things from happening. And then some of the original toilets from the 70s in the lower level, we replaced some of the rotting plumbing and did some of those things. At Robinwood, we have, if you've seen that building, there are, as opposed to 9 roof sections on Southwood Glen, there must be 15 or 18 on Robinwood. There are a bunch of little ones. They move a lot. And we had some drains in some rather odd places, and the roof was actually failing it at the roof drains. So we spent time redoing all those roof drains where a lot of movement happens because they started to fail, and it just made sense to do all 11. We did 1 or 2, I think there was 12 total. We did 1 about a year or 2 ago, and it just made sense to do all 11 because we had 2 more fail and they were all going to go. So we did that. The dish room floor, and the reason that's really there is because it was, there's a big structure there, that big stainless steel dishwashing that you had to work around. But most of that cost went to repainting that gym floor, where there's probably 1.5 miles of lines on the gym floor, and they have to be sanded off, they have to be masked off, they have to be primed, they have to be painted. So it took 2 men a week to repaint the gym floor at Robinwood. Here, and also at Forest Park, you may remember you couldn't get in the door for a while, the one door last winter. Well, so we replaced the concrete right in front, we replaced some concrete that started to move off this peninsula, and also one of the, back by the 400 entrance to the middle school, we replaced that concrete as well. You may have remembered last winter was pretty brutal, and so we had some movement in concrete that we've never had before. So we were able to take it, we just had those 2 places, so we were good, and we were able to take care of that. We had some damaged toilet partitions at Forest Park. The kitchen receiving doors, there's a lot of traffic through those doors, and we did replace them with a more durable set of doors. We also replaced them with an uneven set of doors, so that one door is wider than the other, so when you open up the active leaf, you've got maybe 42 inches instead of 36, and the other one is smaller. And then we had some sagging ductwork at the high school that we replaced. So that's what we did last summer. Any questions? Now, for this year, you'll see I've put together the list, a continuing list, and numbered all the items. And this year, I'm recommending that we do a single item, the playground at Pleasant View. It's actually a much larger project than Robinwood was. If this is the building, if that's the building, and this is the street, the high ground is back here. And the water from the neighborhood flows around the building, and then really it collects behind the building, under the asphalt of the pavement, out in a swale out here. If you're Mr. Feckler, you're trying to manage all the kids in a little piece of green space here between the 2 swales, and a big green space over here, but it's so far away from it's quite far away from the playground and the supervision, you'd really much prefer to get them here. So the plan is in addition to fixing that pavement, you'd make it larger, more appropriate for 500 children, and you'd also take this drainage and keep it going that way, and keep this drainage and going out here, and then flatten out the part in the middle so that the children have a better place to play. And better security and better safety when you've got, again, 500 kids out there. So that's why it's actually more costly than Robinwood, because there's a lot of dirt to move. So that's why I'm recommending that we do that project this coming year. And other than that, this is the same list we've always looked at. I continue to make sure it's updated. I try to make sure that it's as complete as possible. I've put some renovation items there from a possible Forest Park. I know one of the board goals is to talk about what we might do for future facilities. So I try to identify some things that, at least in my head, are probably going to be part of the area that we renovate. You know, nothing's been developed yet, but it's just what I'm thinking. And quite honestly, that's kind of, what else did I want to highlight?
We should mention, Mark, that these are not listed in priority terms, they're just
Correct.
items. The 81st could be the first.
Correct. It's a matter of, it's different every year. It's very fluid, our process. And the good news is that this keeps us flexible enough to meet those changing needs. If we strap ourselves into, you're only going to do this project this year, and you're only going to do that project next year, if something changes, what do you do? So that's why this process, I think, works very well, and it keeps us fluid and keeps us on target.
I have a question, Mark, about the Pleasant View project. Do you anticipate any environmental impact or any DNR concerns with that, or it's just moving the drainage so small of an amount that you don't think it's going to matter, or?
Well, that's a tough question. I think that's part of the reason why we're going to move the drainage instead of dramatically changing it. So I think not, and that's part of what we'll keep in mind as we design this. If you were to say, change it completely and put in a bunch of underground piping and put a retaining pond down there, then you might have more issues. So we're trying to design a project that's more environmentally and regulatory friendly.
Okay.
So that's part of why we're just trying to move but again, we'll have to work through those things when we get in deeper into the design process. At this point, all we have is a preliminary design.
Can you share that design with the board? What is the $900,000?
Well, I
based
just
on?
did. I mean, really, it's a preliminary concept, I should say, really just bringing that drainage straighter out and opening up a space directly behind the building for the kids to play on.
Well,
That's
what-
really the design.
But then what is the $900,000 based on? I do see I did pull the list that was provided as part of the budget. I guess there's two projects that I think are related to this. Grass playground for $200,000 and a playground resurface and extend for $350,000. So that's $450,000.
Yes.
So the project, as you originally envisioned it, it's doubled in cost. And I guess what additional information you have that would warrant that change in number?
Sure. The ground is starting to move a whole lot more than we expected it to move. We thought we had more stability there, but there's a lot of stability. This 900,000 is really worst case. We haven't dug a hole, we haven't really done anything more than a concept as to this is where it ought to be. And we took a look at the costing based on the worst case scenario. I would say the 900,000 is a maximum, not a short-sighted look at it, but a long-term look at it, and so that's really what's going on.
And my other question would be, I believe this is part of our maintenance, our $500,000, is that kind of the general level we've been spending, Jim, in the budget? Has it been 500? I mean, I'm going back 3 years, the last couple of years, we obviously have been spending a lot more.
In this list of projects, I think this current year, we had it at about 840,000.
Although I see the list
We have
here,
been-
730 is what you provided as part of the budget documents, 730,000.
Yeah, prior to that, I think it was a little bit less the year before, and then prior to that, it was about 600 and then 500 before that.
So this is, it's a lot more than we've seen in the past. Would that be safe to say?
It's about $60,000 more than last year, but we're a much bigger district than we used to be. I mean, we keep adding square footage, and we have a list that's millions and millions of dollars long. So one of the things we want to do is get to a point where we're spending about the right amount. 500 was a nice start, but we have, I think, about 840,000 square feet of building in the district. So even if you look at $1 a square foot, it's at about the 840. So that's probably a more normal number that we should try and hold on to in the future.
I guess I would appreciate that, although this is a land improvement. It's not doing anything for our buildings. It's a land improvement to the playground. It's not addressing, a planned facilities maintenance. So how is this the project that
Well,
we
it
have
was
all
on-
these buildings, all these facilities, and this
It
is
was
the
on
project?
the list as a project, so we're doing it now. I mean, there's land on the project, there's improvements to land, and there's improvements to building. We don't really separate the two. It's the biggest need between the two of them.
And if you're having an all-asphalt playground day, you see this as an improvement to the educational process, because there's a lot more trips to the health room, there's a lot more crowding, there's a lot more issues going on the playground, supervision is more difficult. You can ask Mr. Nelson how much it has helped the process. I mean, we give kids a recess because they need to burn off some energy. And then you put them on a playground that's rocking and rolling, that's got a lot, that's uneven, and they're cramped in it, and they have no place to play out in the green space because maybe it's muddy or the ball keeps going into a swale. You're going to improve the educational process by giving them a good recess experience. I haven't been a teacher, I've never been a teacher, but I know that they need to burn off some energy. And the better you can make that, I think it translates into the school.
And you're gonna have, there obviously you have these contingency projects that you can't plan for, because you never know what's gonna come up. So do you think that that money that's gonna be put in the next year's budget is gonna be closer to the $1 million for your capital project fund?
We're trying to hold on to the 900 and hoping that we don't end up with worst-case scenario, but we'll have to plan for some of those as well, because we know they always happen.
Yeah. Because that was my first thought when I saw the 900, it was a very big
all of
number.
And part of the problem is you can't really break this project up into two pieces. You know, if you can't do again, it's all running downhill and down into the park, down into the city park. And, well, actually our land between the city park. And you can't really, you do the top half of the hill and then you do this, and then you do the dirt later, and it's just, and now you're running over the asphalt and ruining that. You can't break this one up.
Well, and you never know, you know, we're just looking at conceptual things now. It's like the high school project. You have an idea what it's going to cost us, and 3 weeks into the project, we had to pay $180,000 because we had reinforced soil, but you don't know what's there. You know, we are in these positions because not only that what Jim addressed in terms of our growth and so on, but because the district's getting older. Things are getting older. Land changes, usage changes, and those kinds of things, so we got to keep up with that.
Has, Mrs. Schlueter, your building and grounds, have you gone out?
Yeah, actually, I was the school liaison there 2 years ago, too, and was there during lunch and recess and saw, it was the wet winter, and there were kids, and they're just huddled, like there's nowhere to go.
And I did talk to Mr. Nelson yesterday. I happened to be out there for DARE, and he said it's made a big difference having that playground done. He's thrilled with it for educational and recess, he did say. I have a comment about the long-range plan, and I know I mentioned it before, and I understand things change, but I just think it really would be beneficial to have these prioritized, even though they could change. And I just would like, if anyone has an opinion on it, just so we could see what is most important to the district on these, you know, what is the most urgent for Countrydale? What's the most urgent for the high school? Even though, you know, an emergency can happen tomorrow and you might have to change that.
Well, and that was a change that was made. So I know when I first got on the board, that's how it was done. It was prioritized, and these weren't just listings, they were listings of value, that these are the things that I think are coming up as most important order, with the understanding that things can change. So was that something that was just decided that we weren't going to do it that way anymore?
I thought that we had found it to be somewhat difficult to manage, so, but let me make sure I understand. So what we're not necessarily asking for me to put them into year pockets, but to give a general priority? They're really two different things.
Like a 1, 2, 3, 4 priority, or
Yes.
a coding of some sort.
That,
You had them in your pockets, and then after 5, it was just everything else.
right.
And those lists continued to get updated.
Well,
I
we
thought
got away
was
from that.
helpful.
Yeah, we got away from that because it changed so dramatically every year. We would get partway into a year and realize that something we might have had in year 5 all of a sudden needed to be addressed. So for us, the priority, the issue of priority, because Mark and his people live this every day, we're able to sit back pretty much on a daily basis and pick out those big items that we think are going to be coming up, whether it be a roof or whatever, playground in this case, and be able to say, these are the things that are sort of on our radar that are coming up next year. But as soon as we start listing a priority, then there are those that are going to say, well, you had that as a priority, why didn't you take care of it? Well, then we have to go back and say, because these things came up, and it gets us to this point right here as to why we just listed everything, and then you know, their job is to make sure that we're making good decisions in terms of what needs to be done first, because you could look, you know, if you looked at replacing exterior doors, we got some exterior doors that could be in really good shape, but one bad winter, and they could be falling off the hinges the next spring because of rust or whatever it might be. So it needs to be fluid. I think there's always that, in Mark's mind and in his staff's mind, there's always that, okay, this is something that's going to be coming up, we got to keep an eye on that. And I think those are built into our maintenance staff and our custodial staff to be able to say, here's the priority for that year if it comes our way.
Right. And I would give you another example. On the original, on what we did last summer, the heaved concrete. That entrance over at Forest Park has been on the list for quite a while, thinking that, you know, I wasn't sure the building was going to get laid on top of it, or what was going to happen. Well, then the concrete started to heave, and it became such a problem that we had to do it. So it was, at one point, last year, or 2 years ago, it was down on this list, under Forest Park, and it had to move up because, well, we had a heck of a winter.
Well, I have to say, I kind of disagree that there's no value. You can prioritize and you can plan 5 years out. You know, I work with this all the time. It might be helpful, and you're right, it's the smaller things like replace exterior doors. You could just allocate, I don't know, $10,000 each year, and whatever doors come up, you replace them. If we would even take this list and, you know, anything under 500,000 would just kind of be your little maintenance thing, and we don't even need to see those on the list. But anything over 500,000, you should be able to say what's important and what year we're going to do it. I think it's entirely possible, and I think there's value in doing it. It helps planning, helps your community know what you're thinking, and we should be doing it. And that's my experience. You can disagree, but it would be valuable.
With regard to the redesign of the entrance loop and lot at the middle school, do you anticipate, or do you foresee us doing something with that in advance of what we may have to do at the building level? Or is the redo of the parking lot and the loop and all that, the traffic problem?
No, we're not going to touch that. We've had a number of consultants ask that question. They said we'd be foolish to spend any money on that, because if we did go into any construction later on, it would all have to be torn up, or it would be ruined when we did it. So it would be a wasted spend, because, and even if the construction started and we had that done, there's a good chance that some part of that would have to change as well. So we've had a number of people that took at least a bird's eye look at it, that are in that business, and said, why would you want to do that? You're going to come back in there, and pretty soon all you're doing is solving an entry and an exit problem. You haven't solved the big problem, which is the middle school. And to solve that, you're going to have a plan that's going to pretty much be coming in and out of that same entranceway with heavy equipment and so on and so forth.
And I think you end up the possibility of creating a throwaway, is what I think.
That's exactly what it is.
You end up with, for example, that 400-pot entrance, okay? We held off on it as long as we could, the one with the heaved concrete, not knowing if a building is going to go on top of it. Now, that might be a throwaway if the design ends up changing that entryway. But you had to do it, so you wait until you have to do it. And I think right now, it's difficult, but the pavement's in good shape. So I think you hold off until as Dr.
We have to have a bigger plan, other than
We have
just.
a bigger plan.
Yeah.
In addition to that, I'm not sure that we want to fix the part of the building that 75% of the people, that's all they see. And then when we ask them to really get what kids need, well, what's wrong with the building? I drive in, I drive out, everything's fine, pavement works. I mean, it's kind of, you run that risk as well by doing something. So you run the risk of making a throwaway. You run the risk of risking the possible yes vote on any kind of a major renovation. So I would.
So that
recommend-
175 on here really isn't a line item that's looking at as a project, because that will be part of the renovation and the remodeling and a potential referendum on a road project.
Correct, and that's why I put it under renovation instead of future. As you'll see in that fiscal year column, I put it under renovation, that whole group there. Again, that's my thoughts of what might be included in areas of most need, and if, as I look at the building and how you might restructure it to make sense for kids, as a 6/8 in the future, those are the pieces that I think might have some value.
So do you have, is this gonna come back in front of us when you have a design and some, a little more harder numbers on this, or what's the plan moving forward between now and when the budget process gets going?
Talking about the playground?
Yeah, talking about the $900,000.
Yeah, we can bring that back when we're farther into it.
Would it be before the budget's finalized then, or when?
Yeah, it would have to be. We'd have to be ready then, because we'll have to start in order to get it done.
You know, I think you're potentially talking March, April.
Well, right, and that was some of the
Pull the
discussion
trigger.
we had last time with wanting to make sure that the capital projects discussion came up well in advance of the
Right.
budget vote, so we wouldn't say, well, we can't really make any changes now because we already have contracts and we already are going on things.
Right, and I was I was under the impression that's why we moved this meeting up so far into the year. But if we want to come back again, we can do that.
Well, and that's kind of what I thought it was gonna be, but,
This would be that meeting where we're talking about priorities and what we plan on doing. If we get to April and we come in and say, well, it's 750,000 or something, and the board says, no, find something else to do, it's pretty late at that point. So this was the one to talk about what the priorities were. So if you had, suggestions or whatever, it would be the time to talk about it.
well, it's $900,000, there's no plan, there's no bids, there's no, I mean, I know it's worst case scenario, but
There's an estimate.
I think what we're saying is that's a project that we intend to move forward on, but that $900,000 price tag, as well as the design and so on, is something the board would need to take a look at, and the final price on that, so that you know you're spending maybe $750 or whatever it might be. But it's to move that planning forward is the intent of this meeting, to say, here are some of the things we're looking at, and here, whatever input you might have on it.
Is there anything anticipated at Country Dale with the land purchase, or is that moving forward?
That's in this current year's budget.
The land purchase, what about the,
The changes to the, that area, making it parking,
Yes.
would also be in
yeah,
this
that was
year's
all gonna
budget.
be in this budget.
oh, that's, right, that's part of the,
That's part of this year's budget.
okay.
Where's the price of asphalt right now? Has it stayed pretty level? It's been high, really high. Do you go out and get bids for a project like this?
Oh, absolutely, but the asphalt is, in this particular project, the asphalt's the top 4 inches. So all that work we have to do below ground, it really is where the price is.
That's a good question, though, because at the end of this current year, when we were doing the parking lots at the high school, because of the weather that we had all summer, the crummy weather we had all summer, everybody's projects got pushed back, and no new, by these blacktop people, and we still have some that we have to do little bits and pieces. But as the spring rolls around now, and we have to have the asphalt coming in there, we're being told, at least by the people that have done some of our work, that asphalt prices will go up even further. If you had a locked-in price because of a commitment the previous year and they couldn't do it, that's one thing. But I think as far as any new projects, get ready to pay.
So in your first page report there then, where is the Country Dale project then to add the parking? It's not on this list.
That's not part of that list. That was a separate project to do, to purchase the property and then to change it from a house to parking or whatever Country Dale needed in that area.
And so why is it on the list? Why is it not on the list?
It's not
This
part of
year's
that
budget.
budget.
It's not part of the budget?
Not part of this budget.
It's not part of that budget.
But we added it to this budget, did we not? Did we not approve that?
We
It's not
added it,
part-
we added it to the general budget. We didn't add it to Mark's project budget. That was like a single thing in itself. Buy the property, take the house down, and make parking. That was a separate piece.
It was not in the 800, not in the $840,000.
Okay. Do you know, and maybe I should know this, but I'm sorry I'm not remembering it. What did we budget for that? Or what did we approve? I'm sorry, I don't remember what that was.
I think in total it was about $600,000 off the top of my head for the purchase and redoing the property.
Okay.
That sounds about right to me as well, the numbers
Right.
Jim and I talked about.
So there'll be something back in a minute I can look at. Thank you.
So this is not on here as an action item, so you said this is the time we would decide on this, so are you asking for this to be an action item then?
No, it's more of a, does anyone have a problem with this? Because this is what we see as the item. So this will come back as part of the budget, as the project that we're going to do, and maybe the amount will change or something like that, and maybe he can add back a couple other things. But this would be the main thing that we're going to do. So it's more of a look at it. Does anyone have a problem with it if this comes back as the item? Let's say that the pricing is exactly right, and that's what it is. That's what you'll see as part of the budget. So it doesn't require action at this time.
And in future years, you can likely see not one item in future. This just happens to be one that it's one big one, and we have to find a way to do it. It's been on the list for quite a while.
Well, and there's,
I do know that we did talk about going over these items around this time of the year, maybe even later, like January, February.
Right.
And at that time, actually approving them, because what we didn't want to have happen is before we had the budget, and as you know, when you're hitting, when the school let out, I mean, you could hit the ground running, because your time is so limited that you've got to get to it. And if we didn't have a board meeting, if we didn't talk about the approval, if we didn't do all of that in advance, you're going ahead working on next year's budget without it ever being approved. So we have to, at some point, have an approval on this $900,000, because it's part of next year's budget, so we're kind of approving a chunk of the budget before we get there. But I did think that was like January, February, and this is like preliminary information for us.
Yeah, in essence, you're still approving it as part of the budget when you get to the budget piece of it. We're just not taking a vote ahead of time. I mean, there's a lot of things like that, like staffing. We're making commitments to teachers ahead of time, and by the time we get to the budget, it's a done deal. We would have had to lay them
a
on.
$900,000 item like this, if the board looked at it and goes, no, we need the playground, but we had such a mild winter, everything's going so, we don't want to spend $900,000. Now what? Because, in fact, you've got to have all the ducks in a row to hit it, come nice weather and school being out. So I think we do have to approve it before we get to the whole budget process.
Well, I think we're relying on the board not to do that, to say that at the last minute.
I've made
That's-
mistakes like that, yeah.
And that's kind of the way these have gone in the past. It's a planning effort, it's coming up with the projects and then moving forward. And I feel comfortable having the board look at it and say, okay, we don't really have any objections to that. If something goes south in the spring and we can't fit it in, or we can't do it as part of the budget, we'll come back to you and tell you that too. We wanted to fit it in, but we couldn't, and so we're gonna have to put it off. But otherwise, if it fits, we would expect to go forward with it. And a lot of that, you're right, would have to be done and ready to roll by the time we even start talking about the budget.
Yeah, and I have no heartburn with this project at all. It sounds like it's a great project, it sounds like something we ought to be moving forward on. I'm just stumbling over the procedures and the timing, that's all.
I also, there's another way to look at it. If you just cast the budget forward, you're casting 840 forward to do this. You're not deciding on whether or not to have, I don't think, you're deciding on whether or not to have a maintenance project budget. I think you're deciding on what to put in it at this point. But really, if you cast forward, if the 840 just moves forward, we're only asking for this. It needs to be a little bit bigger. And quite honestly, to keep up with our aging facilities and the size of them as they grow. So it's not really a $900,000 decision, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And that's closer to the number you're looking at moving forward every year, 840?
That's what we'd like to hold on to, yes. And then we'll make much more progress on that list at that level than we would at the 500 level.
So I'm assuming one of the only two things that would really, could derail this, if you say we wouldn't have the money to do it, would be if your bid came in or your estimate came in way out of whack, or if we had some other major contingencies hit this list in the next few months that needed to be taken care of. Then you'd have to reassess. Otherwise, fitting this 900 in is essentially like fitting the 840 in, but there's no contingencies.
Right.
We're already over the number we were at.
Right.
I guess from, to approve a $900,000 project, I would like a little more information, how big is the area? How old is the area? When was the last time you did something on it? Have you done any repairs in the last 5 years? Just some basic information. If someone in the community says we're doing a $900,000 project, a big number, I just want a few talking points to justify $900,000. And you could just provide that maybe in writing in an email. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on this? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, item 9C is the clerk's report, the reading of the election notice. Mrs. Schlueter.
Notice of school board election. Notice is hereby given that there is an election to be held in the school district of Franklin on Tuesday, April 7th, the year of 2015. The following officers are to be elected to succeed the present incumbents listed. The term of the office for school board member is 3 years, beginning on Monday, April 27th, 2015. Incumbents Janet Evans and Amy Schlueter. Notice is further given that a campaign registration statement and a declaration of candidacy must be filed no later than 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January 6, 2015, in the office of the school district clerk at 8255 West Forest Hill Avenue. Notice is further given that if a primary is necessary, the primary will be held on Tuesday, February 17th, 2015.
Thank you. And item 9D, the treasurer's report. Are there any questions regarding that?
And the report is available in the library.
Correct.
I did provide some questions to Jim. You guys are all shared the answers. And there is no need for borrowing it this month, is that correct?
Right.
Any other discussion? All right. Item 10, liaison reports. We have the personnel and policy report. Mr. Nielsen.
Thank you. There are two policies coming before the board tonight for review. First one is policy 5340, suspension and expulsion of pupils. And the second one is 5431, suspension and expulsion of children with disabilities. Starting with 5431, the first paragraph is being replaced with the wording provided as described. And Dr. Miller, would you like to add anything to, I mean, this one's pretty straightforward.
Are you 5431?
5431.
Suspension and expulsion of children with disabilities?
Right.
Right. So the first sentence really just kind of described children with disabilities. It really wasn't appropriate part of the policy. So the policy's been revised essentially to align with state statute and to indicate that the board will follow state statute.
And references below, the cross-reference to 5430 that we'll discuss next.
Right.
There was a note that we could dispense with this policy. Would you recommend that?
I think the board has expressed an interest in, having fewer policies. So it really is not necessary to have the policy, and if that is the board's goal, I would recommend eliminating it.
It's pretty much covered in the other policies.
Yeah.
So.
And just a quick question on it does reference federal and state rules regarding children with disability. I didn't go and look at those rules, but is there a consideration for the disability condition
Yes.
in the state? So we do consider their disability relative to their behavior then?
Right, I think you're familiar with, manifestation assessments that are done for students with disabilities. That's all part of the law and a requirement under the law. So yes, there are some differences.
Okay, yeah, I don't really see need to make this separate based on.
Paulette, do you agree with that, or?
I think really all the rules for why you would suspend or expel a student apply to a student regardless. And then the law just tells you what the procedure is if it is a student with a disability, to make sure you go through, as Dr. Miller said, the manifestation determination and then the provision of services. So I think as long as we're really referencing the idea, the federal law in terms of that, it really should be covered. I'm comfortable with it.
Good, I am too.
Should be covered in just the one policy where we wouldn't need the other? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
It's covered in 5430.
5430, okay.
It looks like there's a little bit of language that's been added to 5430 also.
Correct.
To make it more obvious that it applies to both students with and without disabilities.
So would anyone like to make a motion to eliminate policy 5431?
I would make the motion to eliminate board policy 5431.
We have a motion by Mrs. Larson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Klein. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of eliminating board policy 5431, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Mr. Nielsen.
Thank you. The next policy is 5430, suspension and expulsion of pupils. Here we have quite a bit of language changed and inserted. We're upgrading from youngsters to pupils in this one. And let's see, there was some parents, and now parents and guardians, and so things like that. So, again, not a whole lot, I think, to highlight on this, other than the changes that were identified. Dr. Miller, anything you want to add?
No, there's a section removed that describes the conditions in which you'd expel a student or suspend, and you really want to have more flexibility than that, because if you put that in there, then that may be your limitation in terms of what you can do. So it was removed, and reference was made to the rules under state law that would allow you to suspend and expel versus these specific things that are listed in the policy. The policy itself, last reviewed 1995. It's a really long time ago. So that's why there's quite a few little updates within the policy. But overall, I think it says the same thing it has. The timelines haven't changed and all that in time. But I think it's clear now and aligns better with the statute.
I agree. We reference the statute, we reference the board policy, and reference the school handbook, so I think that pretty much covers us.
We would then, of course, eliminate the cross-reference to 5431, because that just got eliminated.
Dr. Pats?
I just want to bring to the board's attention the last paragraph of this policy that I would like to put on a future agenda item. Actually, the first meeting in January is where I would like to do, to have the discussion of establishing an independent hearing officer to see what the board's feelings are on that. Many districts are going that route, and it's a pretty good route to go. But I think if we have an opportunity to put it on the agenda and have a discussion of what it looks like, how it's done, and so on and so forth, the board may have an interest in that. And if they do, I would like to move forward then with the second meeting in January and have a resolution to that effect, because you have to have a resolution to do that each year. So if we did do that, if it was something the board was comfortable with, we would probably do it every August from this point forward and just have that in place. Because I think it's an efficient way to do things, and I think it allows for, in many cases, a more streamlined process.
Are you recommending just a hearing officer or a different panel?
My recommendation, if we get to that point, would be hearing officer, not a panel. Those that have gone to a panel saw no value in it. Those that went to a hearing officer, and there's a great deal of thought that has to go into who that person is. For example, Cudahy has someone who's well-versed in school law and so on and so forth, who's a professor, but is also well aware of their school's philosophy, their dynamics, those kinds of things, because you just can't have somebody walk in here who doesn't know anything about Franklin's culture or the way we do business or what we've done and try to make decisions. And they have to know about school law a little bit too.
So it's typically somebody from outside the district?
Not necessarily.
No.
It's more or less a qualified person.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should have a discussion to learn
Right.
more about it.
I have a question regarding under suspension, paragraph, third paragraph, where if someone wants to appeal the suspension, and then they would go to the district administrator, and then it says, or the designee. If someone is going to appeal that, and they're going to go to the district administrator, why would you not be available? Why would you want a designee?
I get appealed probably once or twice a year.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah,
So
it's-
why would you need a designee?
It's just more or less of if it happened, and let's say I was out of town and couldn't get back in time. It's just you'll see that in many legal documents in legal education, that it's handed off to somebody if for some reason that person can't deal with it. It's few and far between. I personally want to deal with it myself because, I can get the facts quicker, I can do a lot of different things, and I'm real comfortable with that.
And what's new here also is having the record expunged, this is a new element added
No,
to this?
that's actually in state statute. It should be in our policy, and it wasn't, but that's part of the law.
I'm looking for a motion to adopt, to adopt the revisions to Board Policy 5430 as presented with the change Mr. Nielsen noted for the cross references. Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Klein. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nielsen. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you. And item 11, we have a board goals discussion. Dr. Katz and Mrs. Larson and Mrs. Schluter.
Want me to take it, or? Okay. As we had mentioned to the board previous, we had, Amy and Debbie and I had met to discuss our board goal and to take a look at some of the things that we'd like to recommend to the full board. And after discussion on taking a look at the goal, and if you look at the goal, it specifically addresses future plans for facilities and programming. And we believe those two are tied directly together. You can't have one without the other. As we got into that discussion, we talked about the priorities. And you'll recall several years ago, we did a survey prior to the last referendum where we got a lot of input on what we thought the community should do, or what we thought we should ask the community what needed to be done, whether it needed to be a high school or a middle school or whatever, a lot of variables there. In that discussion, we very quickly came to the conclusion that our number one priority should be addressing something at the middle school. And with that came the opportunity for us to call Bill Foster from School Perceptions and tell him that we wanted to take a look at this and what did he think were some of the things that we should deal with. Jump in here anytime.
Okay.
But he thought it was to our advantage to talk about something. There's benefit to addressing the middle school, number one, because it's a great need in our district. We don't have the needs that previously existed at the high school. or any other of our elementaries right now, it's really sort of an albatross of a school, and it needs something done. That goes back to the grade configuration, being a 6-8 configuration, those kinds of things. And that was on the burner with the last referendum, you'll recall, which was defeated, but not what some people might say, not too badly. But we have on occasion gotten some people saying, now, when are you going to take care of the middle school? So we had that discussion to make sure that we wanted to go that direction, and we talked about, do we want to put another survey out there that opens the door up, sort of Pandora's box, and say, what do you want to do? Because we'll have people say, well, build tennis courts, and we'll have some that'll say, whatever they might say. And it's our belief that as a district, that we should be recommending at this point in time what the district feels is in our best interest and what our need is, our biggest need is. And in our subcommittee, we believe that there's no question that the middle school is our number one priority and that we need to address that. And if we all realize it will be necessary to address it via a referendum over time, which part of the survey then would be doctored, not doctored, that's a terrible word. The survey would be constructed to say that, we've got this on the burner, we feel as a district it's the way to go, and to let the people know that here's what we're thinking we want to move forward with, and eliminating all the peripheral wish list types of things that many people may want us to have. So our intent tonight was to bring to you, the full board, the idea of getting full board support to, number one, make the goal and the planning for the goal as well as the programming relative specifically to the middle school. And that if we move forward with a survey, that survey is constructed in such a manner that it addresses the need of the middle school only, no other peripheral programs. And we think that's very clean. It wouldn't take place until the spring as we move forward for a lot of different reasons. But the main thing is for us to be able to say as a goal and as a future priority for the district, which is the biggest one that's hanging out there right now, the middle school is what we felt was the way to go, and we wanted to bring that to you to get your thoughts. And if that was what the full board wanted to do, then that triggers the next step of having a survey starting to get generated. There's no hurry for that. As I said, we can take a look at that after Christmas, after the holidays and so on. We would obviously bring that back to the board, see what your thoughts were, get your input on a lot of different things. But the biggest thing what we have to do is we can't just be shooting into the dark. We have to be able to say that from a board's priority for facilities and programming. There's no question that from a facility standpoint, the middle school is our target, and there's no question in our minds anyway that the planning and programming for that 6-8 grade configuration and so on is part of that attachment, so they go hand in hand very well, unlike anything else that we may attempt to do. So did I miss anything?
No, you did a fine job. It also gives our community, lets our community know what our direction is, that we're not just shooting in the dark, like you said.
Yeah.
So that's why we thought it was good to be focused on a survey.
I think it extends the mindset that we had, I believe that we had, that we're going to put a plan in place. Initially our plan was to take a look at a high school, at the middle school, Performing Arts Center, those kinds of things. And now one of those things is in place. Okay, that's done. I think we have a great community expectation. Say, okay, what's next? Tell us what we need. And of course, there's a lot that goes into this in terms of selling it to the community, getting community input and so on and so forth. But the first thing we have to do is make sure that you are all on board with saying, number one, the middle school is our priority, and that's the priority we want to move forward with. And then we'll start doing on a monthly basis relative information as far as the survey and so on, bring that to the board for an update as we move forward. So at this point, that's what we have.
The purpose of the survey would be when we would attack it, or what it would look like, or how much, I'm not sure what the
Wouldn't be
survey
what it
does.
would look like. It would talk to the community about, do you think, well, we would probably ask questions similar to the ones that we asked last time that were related to the middle school. We would do a lot of education in terms of the program that's existed there and what changes would take place if we brought the 6th grade up as a result of something we did at the middle school. The where is a big one. The price tag is a big one. Those two are probably the bigger of the two, but there's a lot of other things in terms of, I can't think of the things that we had in the previous survey that were related to the middle school. But
I can't either, but, I mean, that would also tell us if the community said, don't do anything, then we'd know how they felt. They'd tell us, don't do anything, we're satisfied with the way the district looks right now. So that would give us that direction also.
About a year ago, it was brought up that the southwest corridor area of Franklin is being open, and there's going to be a lot of expansion, and we may actually at some point in time, be looking at adding a school. If we do that, whatever we're looking at for the middle school, for expanding that, we should certainly take into consideration the fact that we'll be feeding it from possibly another school in the future, but I don't know what that future is. Are we looking at 2, 10, 20 years?
No, in terms of growth projections, that's not likely to occur for some time down the road. And another variable to that is that should we move forward with a middle school project that would be successful, we create room in our elementaries, additional classroom spaces, which may require us taking a look at that fun project of doing redistricting and that kind of thing. But we also, I'm going to be bringing for the board 4-year-old kindergarten. I think it's not a good thing that we're one of probably 9 schools in the state who doesn't have it. And so that's a whole nother issue, but that's not why we would do this program. That would be an offshoot of this, if this were successful and if our growth occurred and so on. To answer your question better, Alan, I don't think an elementary project will come very close to when we would need to do a middle school project, because I think the middle school is right now.
Steve, you mentioned where was one of the questions. We're talking about the facility where it currently is.
Yeah.
You're not talking.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say where. It was, I guess the when was the big question.
The when
and the cost and that kind of thing.
And, you bring up the 4-year-old kindergarten, and that can be quite polarizing in terms of the community. Some like it, some don't. I would imagine your survey would steer away from that, or would you?
Yeah, that wouldn't be part of the survey because that's a whole nother programming issue, because we still wouldn't know if growth occurred, whether we move the 6th grade up, what kind of class sizes we would have at the remainder of the building. Maybe we don't have that space. It's something we have to address because there also is a large population out there who want us to have a 4-year-old kindergarten. I probably get 30 requests a year. When are you going to do something? Why are we the only school who doesn't do that?
Well, I understand all the
I know.
dynamics there, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying that would not be, at least from my perspective, that would not be something we would put out there to say, here's why we want to do this, so we have room for 4K.
But people,
They'll make assumptions, but that's where the education piece comes in, because there are a lot of people that think 4K is nothing but a babysitting service. And if anybody went out there and looked at quality 4K programs, they would see that that's not the case at all.
I think there's a lot of arguments that can be made just on the 6-8 merit alone,
Yeah,
instead of tapping into the 4K potential. What was the price tag we were putting on the referendum for the middle school?
It was in the low 30s. We are gonna, it will be our intent, however, we're gonna put fresh eyes on this whole thing. We think we can get some different viewpoints and some different costs and so on, so.
If you add up all the renovation for Forest Park for the big stuff, it's like 33.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I didn't remember the number being that big.
Right.
But
But if you did it all at once, there could potentially be some economies of scale, maybe.
Could be.
Wishful thinking, maybe.
and do we have an enrollment size for that building that we're targeting? Do we know what we
We
need
would have,
in terms
Linda.
of enrollment in a long-range perspective?
Yeah, we would take a look at what, we would have to take a look at longitudinal data that told us what our grades have been. We would take a look at our current enrollment trends to see what they are, see what the projections would be, and make it a, suitable size capacity building.
Which was part of the last planning cycle. Do we have some of those numbers already, or would?
We don't have those numbers yet, no. It'd be much like we did with the high school. We built that for a capacity of 1850, and we took a look at, class enrollments and projections and so on and so forth. And we anticipate it will take quite a while for us to get to that number.
I would like to see a survey planning meeting like we had that last time, where we went over the questions and got to have input on those questions. I thought that was beneficial. So,
There's a real art to the survey questions, because you have to, people are going to infer things in those questions, or they're going to, the district can be accused of trying to steer the things and so on and so forth.
Right.
That's why I think Bill and school perceptions, as a school board, you remember, the school board's latched onto them as far as their work, but they're probably, not probably, they are the most credible group out there who does this kind of thing and has had great success with it, so. But you're right, I think we need to have that kind of a planning session.
Yeah, I think it's going to be particularly tricky in this case because the programming and the facility are so closely tied. The way we phrase the questions, I think, is going to be extra important because of that.
Well, the one question you have to answer when you go to a referendum, and there really is only one, and that is why. And we have to answer that. And you can't answer that by saying, well, we want it to look better, or the classes sizes are, the building's ugly, or whatever. It has to be the purpose behind it, that the benefit for kids, and that's really lies in the programming.
Right. And that was part of that was our main discussion, was that was our focus, was the programming for the kids.
This is not a new plan, it's just a continuation.
Be revised and, yeah. So I guess what we're looking for is the board in agreement, you know, in terms of us moving forward with the middle school being our focus. And then we will come back and on a monthly basis, I think we need to stay on top of it, and bring it forward, and anything we have, planning sessions or whatever, to move forward, so. Is that what we're thinking?
Yes.
Do you want to do that by a motion?
I think it would give some, it would send an immediate starting point message, I believe, that we're in sync of moving forward. And, you know, it's not the board going out there then and somebody saying, when did you do this? You come back and say, we just got done and voted on that. We're moving forward with planning for what we're gonna do with the middle school in the future, so.
Would a committee member like to make the original motion?
If you can tell me what the original motion was, I would be happy to do it.
The motion would be for the board, the board to approve moving forward with, in terms of the board's goal. Let me rephrase that. The board is, trying to think of the best word. There was consensus from the board to move forward with planning for the middle school, for the future of the middle school.
All right, so I would make the motion for the board to move forward with planning for the middle school. Planning efforts for the middle school, for Forest Park Middle School.
I'll second.
Planning efforts for a survey, really is what we're talking about here, right?
Pardon me?
Planning efforts for a survey, to survey the
Start the ball
community.
rolling.
Well, start, not just the surveys, all of our planning. So when we bring people in, we're not talking about tennis courts, we're talking about middle school. You know, that this goal is addressing that one thing.
We don't want to just say survey, though, because we don't want to lock ourselves into just doing a
Right.
survey. We want to be able to say that we're going to work on the middle school, all the aspects of working on that middle school project. Finding out and gathering as much information as we can, not just a survey.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, motion by Mrs. Larson, second by Mr. Sleater. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
All right, looking for a motion to enter into closed session to discuss performance evaluation data for the district administrator pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85, sub 1, sub C. Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Nielsen. Is there a
Second.
second by Mr. Alexandrovich? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Larson?
Aye.
Mrs. Witkowski?
Aye.
I'll say yes. Mr. Nielsen?
Aye.
Mrs. Evans?
Aye.
Mrs. Klein?
Aye.
And Mr. Alexandrovich?
All right.
Motion carries. Does anyone need a 5-minute